That's right. You're listening to another episode of the Co-Main Event Mixed Martial Arts Podcast. I'm Chad Dundas. That's Ben Folks. We're longtime MMA journalists, and for the last 14 years, we've been meeting here every week to break down all the action in the wild, weird, and occasionally wonderful world of mixed martial arts. Ben, it's good news and bad news this week.
Okay. Do I get to choose which one I hear first?
Nope, you don't, because it's part of the bit.
Okay.
The bad news is
All right.
that this is the last episode of the Co-Main Event Podcast proper. On Tuesdays,
What?
because the good news is, due to a successful Pledge Month campaign starting next week, this show is moving back to Mondays. Baby, they done it. The listeners of the Co-Main Event Podcast have met all of the challenges, all of the benchmarks for our May Pledge Month. Let me tell you who it was, too. It was the Whale Man. Our guy Whale Man, signing up on May 21st, put us over the top, moving the proper back to Mondays. So thanks to everybody out there who signed up for a $20 annual subscription over at the Patreon page during the month of May. Now we got a lot of new stuff going on over there, new features, new perks due to popular demand, I guess you would say, due to this Pledge Month. It's not quite over yet. We've got a fun week planned this week. We're going to have some patrons come on the show. It's various shows over there. It's Patron Takeover Week this week. So we're going to have a couple of patrons on with us tomorrow during the live chat, and then a couple more on Friday for the Power Hour. It's going to be wild, man. I don't think anybody knows what to expect.
I got to tell you, I'm excited for Patron Takeover Week, man. That's going to be... Listen, I'll just admit it. I didn't think they could do it.
You don't have to admit it. You literally said those words on this show.
I come on here. I told the Sweat Hogs I didn't think they'd get it done. I didn't think that these broke asses would get it together. Now, I almost don't want us to even tell people how successful this Pledge Month has been, because I don't want them to think like, well, these guys don't need the help.
No, we definitely do.
Great.
We absolutely
still need the help.
Absolutely need the help. And in fact, it's still a great time to sign up for the Patreon page. Like I was saying, we got a ton of new stuff going to be happening over there starting in the month of June. And so head on over to patreon.com, sign up, patreon.com/co-main event, and sign up to join the team over there. You know what we are doing in a couple of weeks? Live watch party for the UFC White House event coming up on June 14th, a Sunday. Live watch party on a Sunday, so we're all going to have to mind our manners a little bit that night, because school night, work night, we all got stuff to do on Monday, but that'll be for all the patrons over there on Patreon. And speaking of which, Ben, speaking of the UFC's event at the White House, your man Dana White has been out and about making the media rounds over the last couple of weeks. And we're not just talking about UFCpunchfist.net or, whatever the media
talking about
outlets.
the Nelk boys.
No, he's not going on the Theo Vaughn podcast these last couple of weeks. He's been out there with the big boys. He's been in Rolling Stone. They just announced he's going to be on the cover of Time magazine. Weirdly enough, he went on both NPR and did an interview with David Remnick, the longtime editor of The New Yorker. Two very weird places for Dana White to show up, as far as I'm concerned. But he's been hitting up the national outlets a lot. You know what this made me think of weirdly was, you remember recently when the Washington Post destroyed its sports section, axed its entire sports section, and it said from here on they were only going to cover sports as a cultural phenomenon, meaning I think that they're just going to hit the high points, like the Super Bowl, the World Series, anything else that makes a dent in the popular culture. And I feel like as weird of an idea as this show at the White House is, as distasteful as it is for a lot of people, as poorly disguised as it is as a big boy birthday party for the current president, and not in fact a celebration of America's 250th birthday. At this point, I got to admit that it's shaping up to be a cultural phenomenon. And
Yeah.
that is probably why you have Dana White out here doing these high profile media engagements, some for better, some for worse, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is interesting to me, especially because as I don't think people necessarily need to be told this, but when you see a person pop up on all these different uh, varied media properties all at once like this, that's a strategy. That's
Yeah.
not, they didn't all get the same idea at the same time. Rolling Stone didn't be like, you know what, we should do something with Dana White at the same time, like that David Remnick was like, get me Dana White on the New Yorker's podcast, political scene podcast, by the way. That's people are making Dana White available for this. They're pitching him. They're being like, okay, do you want Dana White to come on, talk about this White House event? But then the thing is, what do we actually end up talking about when he's on there? Because I watched on YouTube his whole thing with David Remnick. I listened on the podcast with Steve Inskeep. You know I'm a Steve Inskeep guy.
Yeah. Big
I'm a
time
Steve
Steve Inskeep
Inskeep
Mark over there.
guy. I'm an NPR guy, so I definitely wanted to listen to that one. And that was one they did it clearly like around the events in Newark where they had the press conference, sort of pushing the White House thing. At one point, they're doing the interview, and Dana White, you can hear a rumble in the background. Dana White's like, "That's my ride." He means the helicopter landing on the roof of the venue. So the the thing that they end up with though is I timed it. You know how much time Dana White spends on that Steve Inskeep interview talking about any of the actual fighters on this White House fight card?
I don't have that information in front of me.
Less than 60 seconds, less than
Wow.
a minute. And it's Steve Inskeep brings it up, talking about like, who are these guys? Ilya Taporia, Justin Gaethje. He has a strange pronouncement of Justin Gaethje, but that's a tough one. So we're not one to throw stones here. And all Dana White says about him, it's just the vaguest stuff where he's just like, great fighters, great knockout ability. Justin Gaethje's a human highlight reel. Ilya Taporia might be the best in the world. Great knockout power, and it's very brief. And even Steve Inskeep is trying to get to something about him where he's just like, I hear, what are their stories? I hear Ilya Taporia comes from like a refugee family. And Justin Gaethje worked on a copper mine. And it just doesn't really get into that. It seems uninterested. Dana White seems kind of uninterested in that. He spends more time in that Steve Inskeep interview talking about his own past as a boxer. And I don't mind telling you, playing it the fuck up.
Jesus Christ.
He's trying to suggest like, hey, yeah, these guys, head trauma is part of this business. That's what they all signed up for. They know what they're getting into. And I did it myself. So I basically trying to say like, I took the same risks that I'm asking these fighters to take. And they end up talking about his past as a boxer, which Dana White has at times brought up. If you've ever looked for any proof that Dana White had an amateur boxing career, if you've ever tried to find anything like that, Chad, there is more evidence that Avon Barksdale had an amateur boxing career than there is Dana White. At least Avon Barksdale was on that poster that they used to identify him. Lester Freeman went and pulled it down off the wall. Like, Dana White doesn't have anything like that. There is nothing out there to show you that Dana White had an amateur boxing career.
Yeah, that's a strange one for him to go in on one more time. I didn't get a chance to watch all of this stuff, but there was a lot of it that I did see where Dana White came off looking a little weird, man.
Well, he's put himself in a really tricky balancing act
Yeah.
because on one hand, he keeps going out and insisting this is not a political event. We are celebrating America's birthday. And Steve Inskeep, gently, as an NPR host will, pushes back on it to be like, well, it's not on the 4th of July. It's on Trump's birthday. And Dana White says, well, it just happened to fall on Trump's birthday, which is on its face, Chad, as a claim, what you would call absurd.
Mm-hmm.
It's an absurd claim to make because the UFC, a company that almost exclusively does Saturday night events, is
Mhm.
here doing its first Sunday event in years. And it's doing it 3 weeks before America's actual birthday, which falls on a Saturday night, um, and doing it on Trump's birthday and just acting like pure coincidence that it happened. And Dana's like, we're doing it on to celebrate America's birthday. And he's like, well, it's on Trump's birthday. And Dana's like, but we're celebrating America. So he has to go out there and keep claiming this isn't a birthday party for Trump. We're not using the UFC to throw a birthday party for Trump. We're not using the UFC to align itself politically with Donald Trump. But he does say at some point in this interview with Steve Inskeep, we chose to support Trump. Like, we're behind Trump, like meaning like the UFC. And everybody can see that that's what you're doing. And yet he also puts himself in a situation where you see it come up a lot in this David Remnick interview, because David Remnick does a pretty good job pushing him on it, where he's just sort of like, Dana has to go on there and defend Trump, both like his record and his character. And because he's like a friend of the guy, because he's chosen a side here, clearly, he puts him, and because we all know how the Trump orbit works. You're not ever allowed to say anything critical of Donald Trump. You're not even allowed to sit there while somebody else says something critical. You're expected to defend him at every turn. The guy can be out here. His hand is decomposing before our very eyes. He seems confused and falls asleep in his own meetings. But everybody around him, if you want to stay in the good graces, is clearly expected to keep showing up and being like, smartest man in the world, could play quarterback for the New York Jets tomorrow if they needed him. Like, everybody has to do that. And Dana White, you see being put in these positions where it's like he's being asked, like, you don't think maybe he's a racist? You don't see him posting these videos where the Obamas are apes, and that
It
doesn't make
seemed
you uncomfortable? And Dana
it
has
seemed
to defend
like
it.
well, it seemed like in the interview with David Remnick that Dana White was finding out for the first time that there had been allegations of sexual abuse against Michael Jackson,
Okay, see, that was
and
one.
and this is what I mean when I said he came off looking weird, because he's sitting there finding out about sexual abuse allegations against Michael Jackson, basically doing the Trump thing of like, I am hearing about this for the first time, and then says he hasn't or didn't know when the president posted this video about the Obamas as apes. And I mean, if true, it just reinforces to you one more time what an insane rich guy bubble Dana White lives in, where he may not find out what day it is. And, unless he seeks it out, I guess. It's just like, I don't know what's going on with this guy. It's just weird. It was weird to see this.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that one specifically, because I was going to ask, do you believe that he is really just learning about this stuff for the first time, or is that his strategy to deal with it, is to feign ignorance so that I don't have to defend it, I don't have to talk about it, because I can just be like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's doing the I don't have that information in front of me shtick, because here's the thing. He brings up Michael Jackson.
Yeah. Yes. Didn't it seem like he was
That's Dana's
legitimately
choice.
subscribed, or like, I'm sorry, legitimately surprised to find that out? Like when
See,
David Remnick is like, "Whoa, Dana, like he abused children," and Dana
Yeah.
White is like, Dana White is basically like, huh, "Well, oh, I didn't know that. I don't know if that's true." Like, dude,
Here's
that
the
was like the
exchange.
whole shit. That was the whole shit.
Because he's saying, he's trying to make a point where he's just like, oh, these people saying Donald Trump is racist, and he's basically trying to be like, he was good friends with Michael Jackson. Would a racist guy be friends with a famous black pop star? And you're like, yeah, I mean, plenty of racists can pick one guy that like it, but that doesn't prove anything. But also, like, that he picks Michael Jackson. Of anybody he could have chosen, he chose to bring up Michael Jackson. Dana's quote, the Michael movie just came out, and you see all these videos now popping up of Trump defending Michael Jackson and the type of person that he was, and that Michael Jackson was around his children and around his family a lot. And David Remnick is just like, wait a minute, Dana. Michael Jackson, as talented as he was, as brilliant as he was a deeply, deeply flawed human being, to say the least. And he was abusive, everything we know about him. And then that's when Dana White seems legitimately surprised and says, he was abusive? To David Remnick, whose brain seems to be melting in this moment, replies, to kids, yes, it's terrible. And Dana White is just like, I don't know if that's true. but I can tell you that the president had a very good relationship with Michael Jackson and had Michael Jackson around his kids all the time and, defended him when that stuff was going down. So to call the guy a racist is crazy. He's not a racist. Now, first of all, defended him against what if you didn't know? Like, what do you say? Like, how can those things be true where you're like, Michael Jackson was abusive to kids? And then he's like, he defended Michael Jackson. How do you know he defended him if you didn't also know the other part? But also, Dana White is basically doing the comedy bit of, I'm talking about Jeffrey Epstein, the New York financier. Like he is doing that, but in real life. Like he is out here acting like Michael Jackson abusive to kids. This is brand new information. I can't believe I didn't know this before. And you're like, that was the moment where I kind of sat back and I was just like, you didn't totally realize what you're getting yourself into, because you're trying to do a media blitz to sort of set the table for this event. And you've made it out to where everybody knows you're a Trump guy. You're a Trump supporter. You're on Team Trump. This whole event is about you being on Team Trump. And when you go out here and do these more mainstream interviews to set up the mainstream exposure about what they're about to see on the UFC White House event, you are going to be asked about Trump's record. You're going to have to defend it. And everybody knows that's what Donald Trump expects you to go out there and really defend it. He doesn't expect you to go out there and be like, yeah, Trump has fucked some stuff up. You can't admit he's fucked up anything if you want to be on Team Trump. And it doesn't seem like Dana fully realized how he was going to end up in this situation. And he didn't, because if you did realize it, you'd think he would have had a better plan for how he was going to deal with it. Bringing up Michael Jackson unsolicited doesn't seem like the result of a really well thought out media strategy.
Well, I mean, come on. He's not going to have a well thought out media strategy. You think Dana White's going to sit down with some media relations experts and let them explain to him how to go do media? No, I guarantee you that he flatly refuses to do any of that. That he's just like, I've been talking to the media for 20 years. I just go out here and roll through this. I've got an answer for every question. And then it turns out maybe he doesn't have an answer for every question. Maybe he didn't know that Michael Jackson was accused of sexually abusing children, which is, I'm dumbfounded by that. If that's the case, and got involved in some situations that he wasn't prepared for. Didn't see Charlemagne the God coming. That's for sure. Didn't see that coming. And I will say, shout out to Charlemagne the God for being the most effective journalist that Dana White has done an interview with, maybe in his entire career.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Charlemagne definitely did some stuff that Steve Inskeep and David Remnick could not quite get there to doing. But it is like,
well, I mean, when David Remnick pushed him on the racism thing,
yeah,
Dana White, all he could say was like, he isn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
when he presented him, when Remnick was basically like, these are the things he says, these are the things he does. How is that not racist? And Dana White was just basically like, he's not.
Yeah. Well, especially because Dana White's logic was, I would never be friends with that kind of a person. I am friends with him. Therefore, he cannot be that type of person. And David Remnick was like, but if he does that kind of stuff, like posting this video of the Obamas, how is he not the kind of person who does stuff like that? Because he did it. And Dana White just replies, he's not. As if that ends the conversation. As if, like, that's the kind of stuff where we've talked before, where at times we go, Dana White's been sparring with the puppies on a bunch of brotastic podcasts where dudes in backwards hats are just going to be like, yeah, you're awesome, Dana. And then when he has to go in front of somebody who's going to push back, he's unprepared for it, because he has not gotten used to that environment where somebody is actually going to push back. But it does seem like the whole thing we're out here doing is, I mean, are we promoting this event? Kind of, but not in the sense that, not in the classic fight promoter sense of, here's who's going to fight and here's why you should be excited to see him. There's none of that.
Yeah.
He's doing none of that. He's not, the fighters here are an afterthought. What's being promoted is the brand and its alliance with Donald Trump. And when promoting that in some of these more like mainstream media outlets, what that equates to is defending it. You're on the defensive most of the time with this. You're kind of going out there and just being like, we're not doing what it seems like we're doing. And it's a tricky place to be in, but it's also a place that they put themselves. And now, you're seeing we're getting closer to this event. I'm seeing it pop up in more mainstream places, especially now that the physical stuff is going up on the White House lawn this week. You've seen it, right? Like you've seen these images of them building out the actual structure for this event, these huge like things going up there now. And people are seeing it take shape, and that is bringing it back to a lot of people's consciousness. Like, oh yeah, I kind of forgotten maybe we're doing this UFC event on the White House lawn. I still don't think regular people who don't follow the UFC and haven't seen what they've been doing with Trump on their broadcast, I don't think they're prepared for how weird this event is going to be, how weird this broadcast is going to be. Because anything that they've done up until now with their Trump promo, just glazing Trump at every opportunity, it's going to be ratcheted it up.
Yeah.
Big time on this event. It's going to be bizarre.
I mean, honestly, I don't know that any of us are prepared for how weird it's going to be. And that says something, because I feel like we're reasonably well prepared. And I still think it's just going to be so much weirder than we can ever possibly imagine. Like, I do have to say, in terms of Dana White going out and doing these interviews where he talks about Dana White and Donald Trump to all of these mainstream media outlets, that's really just business as usual for the UFC, right? When Dana White, every single time the UFC signs a new media deal, goes out there and says, oh, these fighters are going to get so much exposure. It's going to be great for them. What he really means is that like the brand is going to get the exposure, and Dana White is going to get the exposure, because when they get the opportunity to have this exposure, they don't send Ilya Topuria to talk to Steve Inskeep. They don't send Justin Gaethje to talk to David Remnick. They send Dana White to talk to all these people. And so are millions and millions of people going to tune in to watch Ilya Topuria and Justin Gaethje fight? Certainly. Yes, that is going to happen. But you're right that in the lead up, the focus is all on the brand. It's all on Dana White. And frankly, it is all on the president of the United States, that is on one hand a very strange place to be for a fight promotion company, but also kind of like what they've been doing this whole time. It's not a surprise to see Dana White show up on these shows instead of, Derek Lewis or whatever.
The question that we have been asked by a lot of people as the UFC has leaned harder and harder into this Trump stuff, and I think it's going to come up. It came up a little bit in the Steve Inskeep thing, is, are you hurting yourself at all with fans by doing this? And Steve Inskeep brought up, like, Trump is sort of historically unpopular right now. He brings up poll numbers being like, this is like how low his approval rating is. Like you're looking at basically a third of people in America right now who approve of the job this guy's doing. And you really want to tie yourself to that. Dana White's response, of course, is to say he doesn't believe in polls.
Mm-hmm.
He also says, he's like, oh, the polls said that he was going to lose the first election and he won it. And then his poll said he was going to lose the next election and he won. And you're like, bro, he did lose the next election. You're thinking of the third time around, whether he wants to admit it or not. He did lose the second one. But Dana White's just like, I just don't believe in the poll. Like any kind of like negative information is just going to be like, no. The same way he did with the racists. Like, no, he isn't. Like the polls say he's historically unpopular. No, he isn't. Like that's Dana White's approach to it, but it does seem like even if you will probably reach a whole lot of people that don't normally watch UFC events with this one. But those people will come away being like, UFC, that's the Trump shit, right? That's the Trump fighting league thing. And you're like, at this point, we hear, of course, from people who have been turned off from the UFC and from the sport altogether by this. We hear it every week. We receive emails from people being like, I still listen to your show, but I can't do it anymore, man. I can't deal with the Trump shit. We hear from those people all the time. Are there people who are going, I otherwise would not have been into this, would not have given this a chance, but because I'm so into Trump, I will get into the UFC? Do you think those people are out there in similar numbers?
I mean, there's probably people that found out about it through those channels, right? Like found out about or maybe probably knew about it, but like it gave the UFC a chance because they have seen Dana White on these various like right wing leaning shows, right? Like, and some of those people have stuck, right? It's like it's probably not an accident that the UFC is leaning so hard into it. Like some of it must have to do with Dana White being best friends with the president, but if it was financially ruinous for them, some of the other guys in charge over there might have a few things to say about it. So I assume that in some ways it's making financial success or financial sense for them, at least right now. What we know for sure is that nobody at that company is looking down the road at all, right?
Well, there's also the question, there's financial sense, and then there's, like, fan popularity. Like, I mean, fan popularity you would think would equate to financial success, but they might be looking at it and being like, "Hey, maybe we don't get a bill a year from Paramount, who is trying to really cozy up to Trump,
Yeah.
uh, if we are not perceived as being the Trump affiliated fight sports organization. Like maybe
Yeah.
that doesn't happen. And if you get a bill a year just to put on the events, Chad,
Yeah.
you will take some loss of fan popularity and probably still think it's worth it.
Well, yeah, they get that money even if they do a bad job. That's their quote. Don't make me put on my tinfoil hat again. You already know about my belief that the UFC was an important conduit between Donald Trump and CBS and Paramount to get that merger done and approved by the FCC to let it happen, and that it may well have happened at UFC events.
Yeah.
And if let me just say this, if the president is going to grease the wheels to get this merger approved, and the president is going to, and then the merger, one of their first acts is to sign the UFC for way more money
Yeah.
than anybody thought that the UFC was worth. And then the UFC goes even deeper into its support and love for the president. I don't know. You could probably put some dots together there if you really wanted to. You could probably draw some conclusions from all of that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's too tinfoil hattish of you. It's just sort of like it was always going to be inescapable, right? When you're doing this event on the White House lawn on Trump's birthday and still just having to get out there and insist over and over again that it's pure coincidence. It was always going to be a thing of like people making these associations, asking you to explain and defend this stuff, all that kind of thing. I do just wonder, like, I wonder what the sentiment is going to be coming out of it because we're going to see, we're going to see a kind of UFC event that we've never seen before. And that almost never happens these days, especially for guys like us who have been following this shit for multiple decades. It's when's the last time you felt like I'm seeing a type of UFC event I've never seen before? The Sphere?
Yeah.
That was one type. But other than that, like right now, the UFC events, the thing you know about them is that they're all going to be kind of the same thing, regardless of where they are and kind of regardless of who's in it. Here, you're going to have one that is way different and feels way weirder and occupies a very different cultural position and in front of a at least somewhat different audience. And that is going to be very strange. And I wonder a lot how it's going to feel waking up Monday, June 15th, after all this is over and where we're going to be.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just because of my own beliefs and views, but like I was excited to see the Sphere, we were curious to see what was going to happen at the Sphere because nobody really had a notion of how it was going to look and feel. I wouldn't
They
say
said
I'm
he couldn't do it. They said he
excited.
couldn't
Yeah.
do it, Gun.
The haters said he couldn't do it. I don't know who those people were, but they were lining up to say that fight promoter Dana White couldn't promote a fight at a venue. They said he couldn't do it. I don't have the same kind of curiosity about the White House. right? Like I want to see what it's like, but it's like someone took a drink of something and said, "Wow, that's gross. Try it."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I will be sort of like watching through my fingers a little bit, because it seems like especially for people in our business, you gotta watch it, you gotta see what it is, but it also I feel like already when I hear friends of mine asking questions, friends of mine who aren't fight fans, who vaguely follow it or something, and they're talking to me about it, I already feel like I'm in a position of not quite defending it because I won't, but there is a sense in their questions, like the unstated part is, "This is what you guys do?
Mhm,
This is your shit?" Like
mhm.
the guys who are gonna do the event on the White House lawn, and you're just sorta like, "Yeah, but we don't like that part of it. We were watching before they did that. We're watching now kind of in spite of that they did that." When I hear from people who are like, "I can't support it. I won't watch it anymore because of this shit," I go, "Brother, I can't blame you.
Yeah,
It's bad for my business that you feel that way, but I absolutely understand why you feel that way." And yeah, like, I won't call it a sense of dread, but it is not a sense of it's not an uncomplicated sense of anticipation. I'll say
yeah.
that.
Doing an event at the White House is cool, but it ain't the pyramids. We'll talk about that coming up next because right now, like we always do about this time, let's do a little bit of listener mail.
Listener mail.
First piece of listener mail this week comes to us from our guy Balls Deep, who wrote in to say, "I was thinking what a stupid gimmick boxing in front of the pyramids is, but I gotta say it was actually pretty cool. Then you get the biggest reason that I don't really follow boxing: bullshit corruption. There is absolutely no way that fight was even going into the ninth round or whatever it was with open scoring. Absolutely absurd. Then, while I do think Rico was gassed and going to be finished, that stoppage was ridiculous. Boxing is such a clown show! Exclamation point. Ben, did Rico Verhoeven get jobbed? Did he get jobbed over the weekend? Did he get jobbed? Is that what happened?
It kinda seems like maybe he got jobbed, Chad. I mean, I went back and watched this afterwards. I didn't watch it as it was all unfolding, but, I was sitting up here saying, "Rico Verhoeven isn't gonna win this fight, but
Yeah,
what if he does, though?" I didn't expect him to do nearly that well. I didn't expect Usyk to have as much trouble as he did with Vigo Verhoeven at times. Now, it did seem, like we look on the scorecards where Rico was doing pretty well. I saw like media scorecards that had him doing even better.
yeah,
And, he gets dropped in that round. He takes some hard shots. He gets up. They buy him a little bit of time just because he lost his mouthpiece and everything, but he does seem like he's a little worn and is gonna try to survive to the bell. But when the referee steps in to stop it is after the bell has rung. And Usyk
yeah,
lands a couple punches after we hear the bell, but the referee steps in to stop it. And that to me, especially if we're out here, we're fighting for the goddamn world heavyweight title. And you're gonna stop him after the bell when he's with it, like he's not doing great, but he's not a danger to himself at that point. And even if you think that he's completely out of it, he's got he's got the break between rounds to rest and recover. It would seem like you would at least give him that opportunity, especially when you didn't seem to make the decision to step in until after the bell had already sounded. Like, why not let him go to the stool, let his corner work on him, see if a 60-second break revives the man a little bit. If he gets up off the stool to start the next round and you see he's shaky and still seems out of it, then okay, maybe, but it didn't seem like that's a bad stoppage. There's no way
yeah,
that's not a bad stoppage. The question of, is it boxing corruption that caused it? I I that's where I hate to get. It takes a lot for me to buy into the ref was paid off. The ref was trying to protect boxing. The ref was given instructions like, don't let Rico Verhoeven win this fight. Like, that's hard for me to envision, even in
Yeah.
boxing, even knowing everything we know about boxing's sordid history. It's hard for me to imagine that somebody's out there telling the ref, hey, do whatever you have to do. Don't let Rico Verhoeven win this fight. Because if he wins it, we have a huge rematch on our hands, right? Like, who's is somebody out there like so concerned about boxing's reputation that they'd be like, I'm turning down the multi-million rematch, like all the money we'd make off a rematch if Rico Verhoeven shocks the world, just because
Yeah.
I cannot let boxing receive this indignity of having a kickboxer show up and in his first bout become the world heavyweight champion.
It would be the first time ever, right, that someone tried to put the reputation of a combat sport above making money. So I assume that that's not true. And you're right. Like the far more lucrative possibility or outcome would be for Rico Verhoeven to have won that fight and then have to do a rematch with Usyk, right? Um, so it's just obviously there is a lot of corruption in and around all combat sports. Obviously, we've seen a lot of hinky stuff happen, especially in boxing. It has that reputation, but it's just I don't know. It's hard to imagine. And when anything weird happens in boxing, it's the first thing everyone's going to yell,
Yeah.
right? Corruption. Uh, but
Same thing people yelled at Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano, right? Where they were like, hey, if I don't watch MMA and I'm not expecting to see Gina Carano get armbarred in 17 seconds, and I'm going to say it's a fix. Like, people love to throw that accusation around in combat sports, even when they have no idea what they're talking about.
yeah, so I don't know. It's as much as I would love to engage in conspiracy theory even more on this show. I don't know for this one. I can't say. I mean, the question for me is we saw Francis Ngannou show up and fight an out of shape Tyson Fury in a very close bout. Now we see Rico Verhoeven show up and have a much better showing than anyone thought that he would against Alexander Usyk. Granted, we have also seen Francis Ngannou get knocked the fuck out by another high level boxer. But does this make you go a little bit to see this happen again, where a highly regarded striker from another sport who is deemed to have no chance against a high level professional boxer is able to do much better than we thought that he was able to do? Because one time, and I'm not saying this doesn't hold any weight, you could say Tyson Fury with his greedy belly, as Usyk would say, takes Francis Ngannou lightly, shows up looking terrible, not ready to fight, and Ngannou is able to use that against him. But then it happens again to a different heavyweight champ who's going to have a fight against a kickboxer and do much worse than he was expected to do. Like, I don't want to use this as an opportunity to make broad generalizations about the state of heavyweight boxing, but don't you a little bit have to be like, that's interesting.
You're saying, what if these heavyweight boxers actually suck?
I don't know what to think of it, man. It's just that we've seen it twice now. We've seen twice that one of these heavyweight championship caliber boxers shows up against a striker that they're supposed to annihilate from a different sport, and it turns out to be a handful for them that they didn't expect. I don't know what conclusion to draw from that.
We got a question here, right, about the setting itself.
I believe we did. Balls Deep referenced it. Is there another one in here that you were looking at that has to do with the pyramids?
I don't know. I might have just.
I mean, we don't need. We don't need one, right? If you want to talk about the pyramids, talk about the pyramids. It's our show. We can do whatever we want.
Because I gotta say, somebody was talking about, like, when you are waiting around, you're going, okay, these guys are gonna do some shit in front of the pyramids. It does seem gimmicky as hell. then you see the actual setup that they have, and you go on like, well, okay. I mean, I'm paying attention, like that shit is fucking kind of cool to look at and just something that you haven't seen before, all that stuff. Also seemed like when I saw just how weathered they both looked pretty quickly into the fight, I was just like, how warm is it out there in the pyramids like at night, even like it seemed like maybe we were both a little worn out in this one, and maybe you were reminded why people don't do some shit like this more often. But I was watching it and just sort of being like, well, they are trying to do something.
Mhm.
I can appreciate that. There's a part of my brain that's going, imagine the pharaohs being like, aha, look at my tomb, and people will respect this for generations. And then we're like, we're gonna have a boxing match there. We think it looks cool as a background. So we're just gonna go ahead and use it. Um, but I didn't watch it, and I just kind of came away just being like, they're trying some stuff,
Yeah.
they're giving you a show, they're doing something.
How do you think boxing historians, assuming that we're still doing this shit 100 years from now, assuming that we are still around,
Man, we'd be wearing tires and fighting over the last drops of water 100 years from now.
how do you think boxing historians would look back on this era of boxing, right? Because, as we look back 100 years in the past, and you got bare knuckle guys literally putting their money on top of a barrel and then fighting in 100 rounds until one of them dies. We look at that and think, oh, that's crazy. Do you think 100 years from now they're going to be like, they had a fight at the pyramids and then they did one at the White House, and Floyd Mayweather fought a guy on a helipad, like at the top of a building? There was guys on something called the internet who were making a lot of money boxing each other, even though they weren't boxers. It's just, I feel like what we are seeing happen in front of us is probably historically crazy, and yet not that far removed, maybe from some of the things that we saw 100 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, just goes to show combat sports are the carnival that always has to find a new way to entice people into the tent.
Yeah. We did get a question from Jart Harley Barvis on Patreon. Basically, he said at the end of it, now that we got that sham out of the way, surely the next move for Rico Verhoeven is obvious, fighting Waldo Cortez Acosta in a UFC pay-per-view opener for 50 and 50, real business! Exclamation point. So, yeah, in the wake of this, it seems like maybe Rico made the best decision, right? To not
Yeah.
sign with the UFC for whatever bullshit deal they probably offered him.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like the UFC gonna go offer Rico Verhoeven a deal. He's like, I think instead I will fight for the heavyweight title in my first boxing match at the pyramids. And really, it's a star-making turn for him for a couple reasons. Not only because he did really well, but also people are automatically on your side because they sympathize with you. They're going like, "We think this guy got screwed." Now, it kind of can't help but your sense of justice makes you a Rico Verhoeven supporter now because you're
Yeah.
being like, "This was unfair to this guy. He didn't deserve that, and I want to see him treated fairly in whatever you do next." So, like, he's he's a way hotter commodity now than he was before. And yeah, if he had signed with the UFC, fighting Walter Cortez Acosta would be about what he could expect.
Next question this week comes to us from Oscar Eagle, who wrote in to say, ain't shit going on this weekend, so I might as well go on a bit of a rant. Am I the only one who has zero interest in seeing Conor McGregor return to the cage? The Mac hasn't won a fight in 6 years, turns 38 in July, and the last time we saw him suffered a potentially career-ending injury, not to mention his lifestyle, a steady diet of booze and yayo over the years, of ever-increasing erratic behavior. Nate Diaz looked like a distant memory of his old self against Perry, and I got a feeling Conor won't look much better if he somehow gets through a training camp and into the cage. I'm sure Max Holloway will piece him up with ease. I just have no interest in seeing it. Is it just me?
Um, I mean, I definitely understand the like where that's coming from. I can't tell you that you're totally wrong to feel like you're not that interested in it. But it's also like the real question is, what are we actually selling here with one of his fights at this point, right? It ain't
Yeah,
it ain't fighting skill, is what I'm saying.
yeah, but I mean, yeah, you're right. But I guess that begs the question, like, what are we selling then? Like, does Conor McGregor still have that Conor McGregor aura? Because he doesn't have it for me, and I don't know if he has it for a lot of fight fans. Maybe there are casual observers out there who will still be hyped to see Conor McGregor come back and fight. And like I always say, these guys preserve their marketability far, far longer than I think that they should be able to. But what are we selling?
He doesn't have that same aura that he used to have. That aura is vastly diminished, but it's still above the aura of almost every other guy on the roster right now. It still signals to people Conor McGregor fight week, big fight event. And there's going to be a lot more attention on it. It's going to be a lot more hype for it. Like, that's what he brings at this point. It's not that he's a super relevant fighter at the thing. He also, I think, a not insignificant part of it is that there are a lot of people now who have a reason to hate Conor McGregor and to hope that he gets the shit beaten out of him and to enjoy watching him get the shit beaten out of him. I think you started to see that in those last two Dustin Poirier fights. There were a number of fight fans who had been following the Conor McGregor story enough that what they wanted was to see Conor McGregor receive the divine fist of justice inside the UFC cage. And this is a sport uniquely capable of giving you that. And it gave it to you in both those fights in slightly different ways. I think that there will be some people watching for that. But in terms of like, are we tuning in because we think that he might be one of the best in the world? No, he brings a big show vibe. And so just because he's there, it's going to be a bigger show than usual. And that is something that we've been hungry for in this sport. I wish didn't feel so gross, but it's still like that's what he brings. That's what people are tuning in for, whether they are able to say that or not.
Yeah, I don't feel like I even have an interest in watching him get beat up now.
Really?
I mean, maybe it will change my opinion if he wins, but I just feel like this is a sad old man now. Like, I kind of feel like this is a sad old man that we're going to drag out here after being away for so many years, and he's going to get beat up. Max Holloway is going to do his Max Holloway thing to him. I don't know. We'll see. We got this one from Puffin on Zooties, who wrote in to say,
Nice.
I pray that you didn't, but if somehow, some way you found out anyway, did you guys see any of that brand risk promotion MMA card that featured former NBA and NFL players, Ray J getting knocked out by someone named Super Hot Fire, who hit him with a Poeton level left hook, and social media influencers galore? Please look up No Neck J. I'm not gonna. Of course, Dana White, Hunter Campbell, and Nina Drama were there on the desk for the main event. LOL. Is that true? No. Spoiler alert, no one seemed to know in preparations for these fights where the weights or the peptides were kept at because everyone was dad-botted the fuck out. Please discuss.
I saw a clip that showed, Dana, Hunter Campbell. I don't know if I saw Nina Drama there. I admit I'm not the biggest Nina Drama fan to be able to recognize her immediately, but I definitely saw Dana and Hunter Campbell doing there. Did you see Sean Strickland's response?
Yes. Yeah. Sean Strickland Sean Strickland finally found the bottom.
Yeah. I was amazed. I was like, Sean Strickland sounded horrified and disappointed in himself for having gone to this thing. It seemed like Sean Strickland was going to leave there and immediately go home and take a shower. And I was like, this is what it takes for Sean Strickland to be like, what have I become? What has my life become? This is unseemly, gentlemen. Good day. I said good day, sirs.
It's the one thing in the world that Sean Strickland has any respect for.
Yes.
Is fighting.
Like, he actually gives a shit about this and does feel gross when he sees you demean this. That was wild to me. Yeah, man, that whole shit, especially because the point I saw a lot of people making is, so right after you guys are all telling us how Gina Carano and Ronda Rousey? No, we don't think that's good for the sport. We don't want to be in that kind of a business. That's bullshit. And then you guys are excited to go to this? You guys want to go be a part of this? Like, come on, man. That shows like, yeah, okay. Not that I ever believed any of the stuff you were saying, but yeah, you don't have quite as high as standards as you would like us to believe. Also, the shit I liked watching about it was I came away from watching some clips of that thing, Chad, being like, I think I could beat Johnny Manziel in a fight. I wouldn't have said so. I would have thought, hey, a guy who was like, a Heisman caliber football player, probably just on sheer athleticism, is going to be able to beat my ass. I don't think so now. Put me in there with Johnny. Even right now, age 46, gentleman of a certain age, I feel like just the level of jujitsu I have, I think I could beat Johnny.
I'm going to have my people reach out to Johnny Manziel's people, and we'll see if we can put it together.
You see him throwing those kicks? If that's what your kicks look like, brother, don't throw them. No one says you have to throw kicks in a fight. Not everybody's a kicker, Johnny. That's fine.
Co-main event fighting championships. We'll get that on CMEFC 1. That'll be the main, you and Johnny.
I don't know if we're main event quad. I'll say that.
It literally does not do this any other time.
Made it 50 minutes in here this time.
Well, it quit early. Fucker. Okay, we're back. Still there?
I'm here. You're breaking up a little though. It's not super strong.
Well, I just finished up my question from the Greek bar asshole about what would have happened if Scott Coker took over the UFC when the Fertitta sold it.
Okay. Do you want me to pick it up there?
I do.
Okay, you sound like a robot, but okay. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, if we start to play what if with both the entire trajectory of the UFC, like playing sort of like what if Scott Coker had gone to high school with the Fertittas instead of Dana White, sort of feels a little bit like we're being like, what if the South won the Civil War? What if, what if you stopped the Kennedy assassination? Like stuff like that. Like you're imagining such an alternate universe that it's hard to know, especially because it's like, if you had put Scott Coker in that spot, would he have just become a completely different version of himself? Just because of what was available. Like it's easiest, especially now, for people kind of regard Scott Coker as like, he's the quiet little promoter who could. He found success in a tough spot with what he had to work with. He did a good job, but also never became the guy, never became the big guy. Would have been a completely different type of UFC president, all that stuff. I don't know. We don't really know. I can't see him turning into Dana White.
You don't think there's an alternate universe out there somewhere where Scott Coker is That's my ride. And he's running up to jump on his helicopter, and it's the law of the jungle, brother, like all the Dana White stuff.
I can't see a butterfly flaps its wings and it's Scott Coker who Colby Covington runs up on at the blackjack table sitting there with a girl who has to quickly get out of the frame. You know? That just is tough for me to imagine. I can't see it
Yeah.
Scott Coker slapping his wife in the nightclub in Mexico. But yeah, I'm very interested to see what becomes of this thing with Scotty Cokes back in
Mhm.
MMA, saying they've raised this money, because it's like we talked about this on the Power Hour. The plan that they've outlined is very ambitious. That you're announcing this thing kind of midway through 2026, and you plan to launch January 2027, have your first event, and do one every month. Because that's just I still wonder where the body's going to come from. How do you make it not seem just like a sad imitation of the worldwide leader? I don't know. I'm interested to see what it looks like and what we come up with there. If you're one of the people who put in some of the money to get them to 60 mil, I hope you don't need it back anytime soon, I would say.
$60 million you never want to see again.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that what we're dealing with here?
Uh-huh.
I kind of have faith in Scott Coker to create a going concern, right? Like I have enough faith in Scott Coker to think that he will be able to produce an ongoing MMA show that is of relatively decent quality. Exactly what kind of audience it gets or where it lands or who the people are who fight in it, I can't say. Those are obviously really, really important factors that we still need to figure out. I feel like if Scott Coker managed to get his promotion onto a significant streamer or channel that had a low barrier to entry and that a lot of people already watched, I feel like he could create a nice little fight league. Like, I don't think it's going to compete with the UFC. Scott Coker doesn't seem to think it's going to compete with the UFC, or at least that's what he is saying out loud at the moment, which is probably the smart thing to say out loud. But unfortunately, as you just said, similar to what happened with Strikeforce, I think the cap on Scott Coker's ability as a fight promoter is his investors, right?
Mm.
Like, because that's what happened with Strikeforce. Investors pulled their money out, decided to sell at who decided to get their money back out of it. We don't know the province of the 60 mil or how long it will be there, or if the people who are providing it are going to stay in for the long haul. And that, I think, is probably Scott Coker's Achilles heel. I do have to say, everybody knows that I love Scott Coker. I think he's a good fight promoter. He seems like a good guy. He's always treated the fighters notably better, I think, than the UFC did. I don't know that he would have been as effective as a UFC president as Dana White. And it pains me to say that, but I think for a while there, that Dana White was kind of the perfect guy for the job. And whether or not that job was over by the time the Fertitas sold out to Endeavor/TKO, I don't really know. But there was a while where Dana White was the right guy. He was the right guy that they needed in that position at that situation or at that time.
Just trying right now to picture Scott Coker sitting there with David Remnick being like, think about this. Trump was good friends with Michael Jackson. Had him around
I
his kids all the time.
guarantee you Scott Coker knows about the allegations against Michael Jackson.
I'm going to text him right now. Scott, are you aware? No, I'll offer no context or anything. I'll just be like, are you aware of the allegations against Michael Jackson? Yes or no, Scott?
I guarantee he knows about it. All right, that's going to do it for the Co-Main Event podcast this week. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We appreciate the support. Go over and join the Patreon, patreon.com/co-main event. Never a better time to get in than right now. Still a few days left in Pledge Month coming up in June. Going to start up a bunch of cool stuff that'll be brand new, and we think everyone will like it, so we're excited about that. If you do that, we'll see you tomorrow. If you don't, we'll see you on Monday. Feels weird to say that. Feels weird to say that we'll see you on Monday, but that is the plan at this moment. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for listening, everybody. We appreciate the support. As for right now, we are done. We are through. We are out. How do you not know? How do you not know about that? Because he sounded like he was being truthful about that part of it.
Do you think he is aware of the allegations against Jeffrey Epstein, New York financier?
I think he is aware of those, and I think that he has probably a very interesting take on it. Don't you think?
I think his take is not quite as black and white, perhaps. I think that Dana White would not take the position that anybody on the Epstein list must be a piece of shit. I think he might take it on a case-by-case basis.
I mean, I think his take is going to be it was a terrible thing what they did to the president with all this Epstein list stuff. They smeared him. They smeared the name of a good man.
Brother,
Politics is dirty.
When I was listening to his Steve Inskeep podcast, and when he said how he was appalled at what a dirty business politics is, and then when he said, I mean, what they did to Trump, I was like, to him? What they did to him? Man, you should have seen my face.